So, just to test them to start off with, just to make sure, so this being a 1970 car, should have intermittent, and clearly that kind of works. But the park is a little bit all over the place. Permanent white. If I turn them off, it just stops. So the first job is to strip this out. Next, this is in the way, that's the warm air blower motor. Well, the blower motor, that needs to come out as well. Now, this, I think, is screwed into the holes behind here. Disconnected this plug and then it just pulled out. There is a U-shaped bracket here that houses the wiper assembly, and there's a little arm that sits on top of it, and what I need to do is loosen a bolt, a nut that sits on top of here, rotate the wipers to the right position, and then do it up again apparently. Let's see how that works. Just been reading a few posts on the Pelican Parts forums, and it seems that my issue might be the stalk here, or the contacts in the stalk. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the steering wheel off, which I need to do anyway to fix the horn. This bit needs to come off, and then I will check the contacts on the stalk. Right, that comes off. Oh, horn. 27mm socket. This comes off. It's the horn ring. This needs to come off. Test the contacts. The switch. Now to loosen the switch and undo this one. You can test the contacts on the switch. First things first, I'm just going to give them a quick clean. Some WD-40, just the contacts. check the contacts on the back, red one being permanently live, so when the windscreen wipers are off, that one has power. Blue one is the intermittent. This one here is the slow speed, and this one here is the high speed. So somehow either this is not connecting properly, or alternatively the issue is in the wiper motor. Now I need to check the wiring diagram, but it seems that this grey wire here is the park, which should only have power when the switch is set to the off position. However, it has power all the time, so I'm going to take a look at the wiring diagram and see what the story is. So here is the wiring diagram for the 911, and I have distilled the relevant parts down to a smaller diagram, with this bit here being the wiper switches, 2 relays, one for the main functionality and one for what's called the follow-on, or either the park functionality, and then this bit here being the motor, and then some fuse box down there. So it appears to me that my issue could be related to the grey switch, or grey cable rather. So I'm going to trace that back and make sure. I've seen lots of reports about people having issues with the grey cables, specifically on the switch, it not working properly. That could well be my problem. Just going to see if I get a permanent signal from the grey switch into the relay, and then this C-type thing here is actually within the motor itself, and what happens is when the motor turns to a certain point, then it breaks the contact, and that's quite often what the problem is. So it's either that C thing within the motor itself, or the switch is having a permanent connection, irrespective of whether the circuit is live or not. Of course, it could be other things, but those are the 2 main suspects. So basically, the grey wire comes into this relay when the stalk is in the off position. Then 53A then sends power to the wiper motor only when the little C thing inside the wiper motor is not in the correct position, and then that circuit is powered only when the ignition is on. So in theory it's related to the grey circuit, so I can see if I'm getting power from my grey switch. So here are my 2 relays. The one on the right is the main wiper relay. I know this because it has a blue cable going into it. So the one on the left is the follow-on relay, and one of those cables, despite being absolutely filthy, is going to be the grey one. So a bit of cleaning. I have a brown and white, brown, black and orange, grey, grey and white, and red, which reconciles to my wiring diagram, fortunately. So if I take the plug that goes onto the bottom of the relay, that is the grey cable, and that is the earth. So what I'm going to do is turn the ignition on to the first point, and then just see what sort of power I get, if any. Well, whilst I've been testing it, the intermittent has now stopped working, which is quite annoying. And even though I can hear the relay clicking in the cockpit, so I'm kind of suspecting that it's not the switch, but it could be the motor itself. So I'm going to have a closer look at the switch regardless. It's a bit easier to diagnose than the motor. So I was doing a bit more investigation, and my next plan was to remove the motor, which you can see from the clock hole here. And in order to do that, you have to unscrew these two bolts and other bolts. Anyway, when I was doing that, I noticed that the spade connector, which is currently, you can see here on the left, was not connected. So you can see that 53A is the terminal on the left, which is not connected, and here it is before I'd reconnected it. So you can see that was definitely my problem. So great news, and I think this is now problem solved. Just need to test it again. And I have just plugged it back in again, and it now appears to work. So let's just prove that. On, off, and park. Hurrah! Superb. Next job's the horn, and this is the horn ring, and it clearly works. So it's just a dodgy connection, I think, so should be able to fix that as I put everything back together. Right, back together and working. Just a bad connection. Just the button inside the steering wheel wasn't seated properly. So now sorted.